So today, we have many people that like to argue with rabbis when they hear things that obligate them. When a rabbi says, "Amechalel Shabbat, mot yumat," it says in the Torah, it puts the person's Judaism on suspension. According to the Rambam, Ilchot Shabbat, chapter 30, a person is considered, a Jew that violates Shabbat is considered an idol worshiper. So immediately you say such a thing in a lecture or in a video and people want to go to war with you like you wrote the Torah. No, you're wrong. I said, hey, listen, it says it in the Torah. It says it here. Parashat Ki Tisa. It says it 12 different times. The Rambam says it. Shulchan Aruch says it 7 places. The Zohar Kadosh says it. There's many, many sources. No, I think the answer is, no, I think the Rambam is wrong. I think the Rambam is wrong. Ani cholek alav. I disagree with him here. Now, before learning Torah, it's very easy to think Rambam was like us. To think Rambam was like us, like he's like, it's a rabbi. It's like a local Chabad rabbi or Breslov rabbi or Orthodox rabbi, this rabbi. They just don't know, it's a rabbi, big deal. So I don't agree with him, he's human. But little do we know that he's as far from us as we are from monkeys. In fact, with all due respect, because I'm included as well in this argument, we are closer to monkeys than we are to the Rambam. When it comes to intellect, when it comes to wisdom, when it comes to Torah, and when it comes to just overall midot and character traits. Now this is hard for us to understand because this is far from us. So let's understand what we're dealing with. The Rambam got all of his laws from the Gemara. The Gemara preceded him by almost 1,000 years, and the laws were transmitted for 2,000 years before that. From Moshe Rabbeinu in Mount Sinai 3,300 years ago approximately. It was orally transmitted until the Mishnah and then into the Gemara and so on and so forth. Now in the Gemara, there's a rule that anyone that's mentioned by name, any rabbi that's mentioned by name, can revive the dead. Meaning that they themselves don't necessarily have powers, but they have the holiness, they have the Kedusha, that their prayers are so significant, Hashem answers them to such an extent that he would revive the dead. So one of the Maasim, one of the times that they had a very interesting story where Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, his chavruta was Antoninus. Antoninus was the Caesar, but at the same token he was Ish Emet. He was an Ish Emet. He looked for the truth, he found the truth, and his chavruta to learn Torah was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, which all of the sages at that time agreed. He's such a perfect person, such a holiness, beauty. He's a descendant of David HaMelech. I mean, this is such a perfect human being that if the Mashiach, if Hashem decided the Mashiach would come, he would be it. This was Antoninus' chavruta. They would study together. How they study? Antoninus built a cave or a tunnel under his place that went directly to Rebbe's study hall. And every night he would take 2 of his, because as a king, in essence, as a king, he would always have somebody with him. So he had 2 guards. So one guard, he would kill right on the spot. So there's no witnesses. And the second guard, as soon as he arrived at Rebbe's place, he'd kill him also. Because he knew that if these guards knew what he's actually doing, he's learning Torah with the Jews, he would tell the people, they would kill him. So the deen to allow him to kill this guard was rodif, meaning that if he comes to kill you, you're allowed to kill him first. So he wasn't a murderer. He was protecting his own life. He was just obligated as a king to have these guards. So nonetheless, one time, he arrived at the study hall with Rabbi HaKadosh, and he sees Rabbi, one of his students, is there. One of the students is there. He says, Kvod Harav, with all due respect, I told you the studying is just between you and me. The studying is just between you and me, not your students. I can't have witnesses. He says, don't worry. He's not a human being. He's not like regular people. He's not like regular people. He goes, okay, if he's not like regular people, he says he's like an angel. He says, if he's an angel, tell him to go tell my guard, bring my guard inside. The guard's dead, but he doesn't tell him that. So he sends, go bring the guard, go bring the guard. He goes to bring the guard. Now, the saying in the Torah, in the Gemara, the Chachamim says, only a fool brings bad news. Only a fool brings bad news. So now, the Talmid of Rabbi sees a dead guard. He says, maybe he didn't know he was dead. Maybe he knew, maybe he didn't know. I'm going to give bad news to the king of the Goyim. Only a fool does such a thing. What does he do? He brings him back to life. Why? Because he was Kadosh. He brings him back to life, they go inside. Now Antoninus knew he killed him. He says, Rabbi, you're right. Your students, they're not like people. They're not like people. Why? Because they're named in the Gemara. They're not like people. They can revive the dead. But please, next time, don't bring him anyway. Now, why do I say this? Rabbi was in a generation after Rabbi Akiva. He was a student of the student of Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva was a student of Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinos. And it keeps going up and up and up and up and up and up all the way to Moshe Rabbeinu. The amazing thing is that just when you talk about Rabbi, in order for you to be a student of his, student to be mentioned in the Gemara by name, you have to revive the dead. Meaning that even the Rambam was Kodesh Kodeshim, was not even able to be a student of Rabbi Kadosh. But when it's compared to us, like I said before, we're as far from the Rambam as we are from the moon, as well we are from the sun. It's beyond us. And the way that we see it is that there was one guy, one intellectual, a Nobel Prize winner, one time said, what's the big deal about this Rambam? What's the big deal? He wrote some laws. You guys are studying how he wrote it. Just study what he wrote. No. We don't study that way. The Rambam has such wisdom, we study how he wrote it. What letters he used. Kivyachol, as if it's like how God wrote the Torah. It's not just what he wrote, but how he wrote it. He says, what's the big deal? He says, listen, he wrote not only the law, but he wrote it in the least amount of words. The most amount of information with the least amount of words. Le'avdil, but Einstein said if you don't know something to explain something in a simple way, then you don't know well enough. Meaning you have to be able to explain it to a child. Most amount of information with the least amount of words. So he says, pick any law that the Rambam said, that we have in our Torah, write it in the least amount of words. The guy studies this law, simple law, whatever it was. After a few months, he comes back, okay, I wrote this law in 21 words. The rabbi said, lower it a little bit. Okay, a few more months, 17 words. Lowered it a little bit. What do you mean? It's less than 17? He lowers it to 13 words. 13 words. And then it gets to a point where he's convinced that at 13 words, we're finished. They look at the Rambam, we're at 7 words. And not only that, at the 7 words, it's actually more clear and more educating than the 13. That's how far we are. So when we understand that how holy and smart and wise and far from us the sages were, we have to think twice before we say, I don't agree with the Rambam. I don't agree with Rabbi. I don't agree with the Gemara. Because in reality, you're only saying it because you don't understand who you're dealing with.